On the evening of March 27, 2021, a long-track supercell produced a series of tornadoes in East Texas. This survey will only focus on the areas west of Mount Enterprise, which was one of the hardest hit towns. We were more interested in the developmental stages of the storm, where ground data is lacking, and driving numerous back roads used up all of the afternoon. However, we will take a brief look at that segment on radar. In that area east of this survey, Rusk County officials reported about 50 residential structures severely damaged or destroyed. Fortunately, there were no injuries. As the storm moved east, though, it approached Carthage as a nighttime tornado, where the Panola County Sheriff's Office reported one fatality. The storm developed in the area of Centerville, Texas, near Interstate 45, crossed over Texas 19, and took on a supercellular structure. Just before 6 p.m., the storm emerged from that area of range folding out to the west, and pretty strong couplet moving across the area southwest of Rusk. There's a very strong couplet, and we can see on the next frame and the one after that, this is going to be about 6:06 p.m., looking at about 105 knots of shear across a very tight volume and a larger area of rotation. We did drive this road all the way down to the area of this dot and only saw a few cows. Southwest of Rusk, we covered 1857, Highway 23, and 752. And finally, on 752, about 4.4 miles south of Rusk, we found some of the first damage, a few limbs down along the road. This is how it looked on the velocity image. Overall, broad-scale rotation, and that very well could have been some RFD damage. We did not see any damage in this entire area here. However, we did start picking up some of it along this track right here south of Rusk, and then some more larger damage out in this area here, which we'll cover shortly. And here we started seeing more branches down along County Road 2404, about 3/4 of a mile south of 2403 Junction. And here, relative to that location, we see the corresponding radar. Along U.S. Highway 69, it was too dangerous to stop. High-speed traffic. However, we did see a couple of large trees down, and this appeared to be along a separate axis further south, probably the start of the tornado itself. There you can see a dot corresponding to our location, and the circulation moving over. Still no very tight rotation indicated at this point. Some degradation of the radar data, actually. And then we had to head into this heavily forested area southeast of Rusk. We didn't see very many people, but we did see a little bit of the local wildlife. Quite a ways down Hardy White Road, which is located right there, we stopped at this location and saw quite a bit of downed trees. And if we look at the velocity, it looked like there was a circulation heading over this area right here. That was about a good 80, 90 knots of shear across that volume. And we did see a few down limbs right there, but nothing major. And nothing on this side either. But down to the south, this is where it was coming together. I'm going to go up another frame. This is about 6:17, 6:19 p.m., and we've got degraded radar data. It's really hard to see what's going on. And here it's indicating about 40 knots of shear, not very much at all. But the damage is starting. You would hardly know it. However, right in here, yeah, you can definitely see rotation. And that's going to be about 120 knots of shear. And it was this area here along 1112, just south of Atoy, that had a damaged barn structure. That was the first heavy damage that we saw. And then a little ways up 343 in this area right here, large trees down right alongside the roadway. and there was a lot of locals driving around. And you can see that's a short distance away from the main rotation circulation, which is 6,000 feet up in the storm. And there's some of that damage about a quarter mile southeast of the 343-1210 intersection. This was taken at the 343-1210 intersection heading northwest, and we didn't want to bother the locals too much.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a different road. And just a little bit further north-northeast on Moon City Road 1201 near the intersection with 1212. That's what the scenery looked like. We got into much heavier damage. So from this point here, we took some aerial footage, heading northeast initially, then doubling back towards the southwest, and then back again to the northeast. And here's what it looked like. Here we are flying to the northeast. The trees are down towards the north, and a few of them right here seem to be lying towards the north-northwest. And then coming back the other way, you can see what looks like two directions that they were downed in, which I would assume would be from the front and the back of the vortex. The sun azimuth was 250 degrees, so that should make it pretty easy to use shadows to figure out directions. And here we have the high altitude view from only 300 feet, but it is to the northeast. And here's the other direction towards the southwest. This was probably not my best attempt at an aerial survey. However, now I have some ideas for next time. And here's how we were looking on the velocity. The aerial flight location located right there. And we run that forward. That's going to be 2322Z. There's 2324. There's 2326. And things look a little bit more impressive at 2328. So that right there, just going gate to gate, that's going to be about 60 versus 52. That's about 130 knots of shear. That's pretty tight. And it is a little bit north of the actual track. So, of course, there's the question whether this was straight line damage. However, the dual direction on that tree fall does make me think otherwise. There's 2331, some problems with the radar data. And then by this time, it was heading up to the northeast, and you're going to see this up next. That, by the way, that's about 130 knots of shear. The base reflectivity looking like this. I'm going to zoom that out just a little bit. Definite hook echo. There it goes right through that area. And then heading up towards the main highway. And this is what we saw there. Some large downed trees along the side of the road. Not a whole lot of it, but there were definitely some tops torn off. And this is what the aerial footage looked like. Didn't go up very high on this one. But that was pretty much it for the damage. That was the last I saw of any downed trees. Anyway, from that point there, we went into this entire region, and we really didn't see any damage except for a little spot right there. And that's what it looked like. Nothing to write home about. And we just continued on down this road and then back up to this one. And the light was fading. Mount Enterprise is off here, and obviously they got plenty of damage. And I wasn't too sure we needed to mess around with that. So we just headed on back, and no more damage was observed. And here's our last look at the storm. There's the vantage point along Highway 204 that you just saw, and we'll just run the rest of that radar out. There's that hook echo crossing 204, and Again, we didn't see much damage through this area, but heading into Mount Enterprise here, yeah, it really got going. And here's storm relative velocity. At this time, it was definitely producing some heavy damage. In this area here, you saw the aerial footage. And then you see the couplet right here. This is going to be the 6:33 p.m. frame. It does look like the circulation breaks up from what we can tell here. I haven't gone up to the higher tilts, but that's just kind of what we're seeing there. And then towards the very end, we had this very large area of very high velocities developing. In fact, if I bring up the base velocity product, there they are. That's going to be inbound of about 84 knots at 4,000 feet. So at this time, lots of damage going on. So we'll probably cover this section here a little bit more in detail on the Forecast Lab segment for Tuesday. So that's what we saw in the western periphery of that storm. It would be very interesting to get a similar video from people who were further east.